You stayed in school, you did everything right. You handed in assignments on time, sat through lectures you hated, pulled all-nighters before exams, and kept telling yourself it would be worth it in the end. And then you graduated, landed the job everyone said you should want, and started doing the actual math. Rent, student loan repayments that show up every month without fail, groceries that cost 20% more than they did 2 years ago. The paycheck runs out before the month does, and the number sitting in your account at the end, the one that's supposed to represent your future, feels almost insulting given everything you sacrificed to get here. Here's what nobody told you: the path you were handed wasn't designed to make you wealthy, it was designed to make you useful, and those are two very different things. My name is Ben, and I spend way too much time thinking about income ceilings, broken career ladders, and why the people earning the most often have the fewest credentials. Today, we're going to look at something the traditional system would genuinely prefer you never figured out. Specifically, why a growing number of people with no degree and no startup capital are out earning graduates by a factor of 2 or 3, and exactly how they're doing it. If this hits home, subscribe. It takes 2 seconds and it helps more than you'd think. Here's the thing: the average bachelor's degree graduate in the United States earns somewhere around $6,500 a month before you've touched taxes, rent, or the loan repayments that have been following you since the day you crossed the stage and picked up that piece of paper. That number comes from surveys conducted across more than 70,000 graduates. So after 4 years of tuition fees, textbooks, stress, and the relentless pressure to perform at every step, the average outcome is roughly $65,000 a year, which sounds acceptable until you actually try to live on it in 2025 in a city with debt and with inflation doing what inflation does. But here's what most people don't realize: there are people right now, people without degrees, without formal training, without connections or inherited wealth, pulling in 15, 20, sometimes $30,000 a month. Not through passive income fantasies or some gray market scheme you found on a forum at 2 a.m. Through digital services. Real work, real clients, real invoices getting paid. And the gap between them and the degree holding professional stuck at 65 grand a year isn't intelligence. It isn't talent in the traditional sense. It's the mental framework they're operating from. And this is where it gets really interesting, because the school system, for all the time and money poured into it, does one thing consistently and catastrophically badly. It trains you out of your natural strengths and spends years, sometimes a decade, drilling you on your weaknesses instead. Not good at maths? Extra lessons. Hey, public speaking? You're doing the presentation anyway. Struggle with languages? Tough, because you're spending 3 hours a week on one regardless. The system treats everyone as the same raw material and tries to produce the same output. And research shows exactly what that costs us. Studies on divergent thinking, which is essentially the ability to generate a wide variety of original, useful ideas, show that roughly 98% of 5-year-olds score at genius level. By adulthood, that number is 2%. The ability doesn't vanish, it gets conditioned out, year by year, grade by grade, until most people genuinely believe they aren't particularly talented at anything. Now, you might be thinking, that's an interesting observation, but what does any of it have to do with making more money? Everything. Because the people clearing $10,000 a month online didn't succeed by becoming well-rounded. They succeeded by doubling down on one specific strength and finding the shortest path between that strength and what businesses will pay real money for. That's the whole model. Here's how the mechanics actually work. Businesses, every business, regardless of size or industry, have three problems they will always spend money to solve. They want to make more revenue, they want to get time back, and they want to reduce what they're spending. Any service you can offer that addresses even one of those three things has a market. Any service that hits 2 or 3 of them simultaneously commands serious rates. This is the filter, and most people offering services online have never even heard of it, which is why they're stuck charging $200 for work that should be billing at $2,000. This is what I call the outcome gap, the distance between what someone charges for what they do and what it could charge for what it produces. Let me make that concrete. Someone who says, "I design logos," is competing on a platform with 10,000 other people who also design logos, and the only thing separating them is price. That race ends one way. But someone who says, I help businesses increase how much they can charge for their product by building a brand identity that commands premium perception, that person is in a completely different conversation. Same hours, same deliverable, completely different positioning. One is a cost, the other is an investment. And businesses think about costs and investments very differently when they're writing a check. The same shift applies across every type of digital service. Someone building AI systems that automate repetitive internal tasks, customer responses, data entry, scheduling, report generation, isn't selling a piece of software. They're selling hours back to a business owner every single week, and the reduction in the payroll cost of doing those tasks manually. Someone who connects brands with sponsorship and partnership opportunities isn't doing outreach, they're a direct revenue channel. Someone who edits video content that grows a business's audience and generates leads isn't a contractor, they're a growth mechanism. The work doesn't change. What changes is whether you understand what the work actually produces and whether you can communicate that before the client asks. Now, here's the psychological layer, and this is the part that keeps most people stuck longer than anything else. We are wired, genuinely neurologically wired, to feel like we need to be ready before we start. Psychologists call it loss aversion. The brain weights a failure more heavily than a success of equal size. So the prospect of going out and trying something before you feel fully prepared feels genuinely threatening, and the brain responds by generating more preparation. More learning, more refining of the offer, more watching videos about the thing instead of doing the thing. The preparation becomes a full-time occupation disguised as productivity. It's like spending 6 months planning a road trip in exhaustive detail, mapping every stop, researching every hotel, reading reviews for restaurants you may never actually eat at, instead of just getting in the car and driving. The map is not the journey. At some point, you have to move. There's also a second trap layered on top of that one, and it's subtler. Most people, when they think about starting a service business, immediately think about the version of it they eventually want to have. The agency, the roster of premium clients, the polished process, the team. And because the gap between where they are now and that vision is so large, they freeze. They don't know how to get from here to there in one step, so they don't take any step at all. But that's the wrong way to look at it entirely. You don't need to build the finished version first. You need to build the first version, the one that's just functional enough to deliver value to one client, get paid, learn something, and repeat. That's it. The rest comes from doing the loop enough times that each iteration is better than the last. The people who consistently break through this don't wait until they're ready. They define the simplest possible version of their service, not the perfect version, not the comprehensive version, the deliverable version, and they go sell it. One clear thing they can do, one outcome it produces. Then they get in front of real clients, and the client teaches them more in 30 days than 6 months of preparation would have. Because when there's a real deadline and real money on the line, the learning accelerates in a way that classroom environments simply cannot replicate. You pay different attention, you retain things differently, you fix mistakes fast because there's actual pressure involved. And every time you complete that cycle, define, sell, deliver, improve, you come out the other side with more skill, more confidence, and a clearer picture of what actually works. Here are the numbers most people never run. If you charge $2,500 per client for a digital service, and that is a conservative figure for any outcome-aligned work we've been talking about, you need 4 clients a month to hit $10,000. 4. If your close rate on conversations is 1 in 5, you need 20 conversations a month to find those 4 clients. That is fewer than 1 conversation per working day. And as your delivery improves, your close rate climbs. As you accumulate results, referrals start coming in without you asking. As your reputation builds, the conversations become easier and the rate you can charge goes up. The math compounds. It does not cap out at a number someone else decided on your behalf. Now, compare that to the conventional employment path. To earn $10,000 a month as a salaried employee, you need a gross income of roughly $120,000 a year. Depending on your field, your location, and who's above you on the org chart, That could take a decade of annual reviews, internal politics, timing, and waiting for someone to leave or retire so the role opens up. The ceiling is fixed. The timeline is not yours. And in a growing number of industries, it's no longer guaranteed at all. Because the same AI tools that feel like a threat inside a traditional job are the exact tools that make a solo service provider faster, leaner, and more valuable to the clients they serve. If you haven't started yet, here's the decision framework that matters. Pick one service, not two, not a portfolio, one. Run it through the filter. Does it help a business make more money, save time, or cut costs? If the answer is no, pick a different service. Then connect it to something you're actually wired for. If you naturally build systems and bring order to chaos, look at automation, funnel building, or project-based operations work. If you're persuasive, good on calls, and comfortable with people, deal making and partnerships are your lane. If you think visually and connect ideas in ways others don't, brand work and content creation will come naturally. If you like breaking down what's working and why, analytics driven editing or conversion optimization is worth your attention. Then go sell it before you feel ready. The gap between where you are now and what a first client needs is almost always smaller than it feels from the inside. If you've already started but you're stuck below that $10,000 mark, the problem is almost never the service itself. It is one of two things. Either you're describing what you do instead of what it produces, which means clients see you as a cost rather than an investment, or your delivery isn't consistent enough that clients come back and refer you to other people. At this level, reliability is the actual differentiator, not raw talent, not the fanciest portfolio. Showing up, communicating clearly, hitting deadlines, and making it easy for someone to work with you, that is what generates repeat work and word of mouth, which is the engine that takes you from $5,000 a month to $15,000 without adding more working hours to your week. And when you do start getting that consistency, the next thing to look at is your own operational bottlenecks. Where are you spending time on things that don't directly produce value for a client? Chasing invoices, re-explaining your process from scratch every time someone new comes on board. Doing manually in 2 hours what a well-configured tool could do in 10 minutes. These aren't small inefficiencies, they're the ceiling. Because you only have so many working hours in a week, and if a growing portion of them are going toward administrative friction instead of billable output, your income plateaus even as your workload increases. The fix is systemization, not automation for its own sake, but deliberately building the repeatable parts of your service into something that runs without you having to reinvent it every single time. Look, the honest version of this is that the situation is not fair. The people who followed the conventional path, did everything they were told to do, made every reasonable decision, and still ended up financially stretched in their late 20s and 30s. The cost of housing has moved faster than wages for over a decade. Student debt compounds while salaries stagnate. None of that is a reflection of individual failure. It is structural. The math was difficult before anyone even started. But the exit also exists, and it doesn't require a complete reinvention of who you are or what you know. It requires understanding what your skills actually produce for someone else, and finding the language to communicate that before they ask. You already have something valuable. The only question is whether you're framing it in terms that make a business want to pay for it. The moment you make that shift from "here's what I do" to "here's what it does for your revenue, your time, or your costs," the entire conversation changes. That's the whole game, and it's available to you right now, whether you have a degree or not. Subscribe if this changed how you think about what your skills are actually worth.